scent of pine and moss filled my lungs as I stumbled through the forest, each breath burning in my chest. Darkness had fallen hours ago, and the autumn chill seeped through my thin jacket. My daughter's face, her soft cheeks flushed with fever, her small body burning up in the hospital bed, was all I could see when I closed my eyes. Lily. I whispered her name like a prayer, pushing myself forward. Hold on, baby. Mommy's coming. The moonlight filtered through the canopy of ancient trees, casting ghostly shadows across the forest floor. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a sound that would have terrified me just days ago. Now, it was a beacon guiding me deeper into territory where humans rarely ventured. Territory that belonged to them. The note I'd found tucked beneath Lily's pillow at the hospital had been clear. Only the blood of an alpha can save her now. The doctors had given up, their faces grim as they explained her mysterious illness was beyond medical science, but I knew what they didn't. That there were creatures in these woods who possessed healing abilities beyond human understanding. My grandmother had told me stories when I was young, stories most dismissed as the ramblings of a superstitious old woman. But she'd pressed an amulet into my palm on her deathbed, a small silver pendant shaped like a wolf with emerald eyes, and made me promise to keep it close. There will come a time, she'd whispered, her voice frail but urgent, when this will guide you to those who dwell in shadow. I clutched the pendant now, feeling its weight against my palm. It had grown warm, almost hot, as I'd ventured deeper into the forest, a sign I was heading in the right direction. The snap of a twig behind me froze me in place. I held my breath, every muscle tensing. I wasn't alone. You're trespassing. The voice, deep and commanding, sent a shiver down my spine. I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. He stood like a shadow made flesh, tall and imposing, with broad shoulders and a face carved from stone. His eyes reflected the moonlight, gleaming with an otherworldly amber glow. Not human. Werewolf. Alpha. Please, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need your help. His nostrils flared slightly, and I knew he was scenting me, reading my fear, my desperation, my humanity. Humans who enter our territory uninvited don't leave. His words were clipped, cold. I lifted the pendant, watching his eyes narrow as they focused on it. My grandmother gave me this. She said it would guide me when I needed it most. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, perhaps, or wariness. He stepped closer, and I fought the instinct to back away. Where did you get that? His tone had changed, a dangerous edge replacing the dismissive coldness. My grandmother. Her name was Eleanor Pierce. The change in his demeanor was immediate and unsettling. He went utterly still, his eyes widening slightly before narrowing to slits. Eleanor's granddaughter, he said, more to himself than to me. Then, with an intensity that made me shiver, what do you want? I swallowed hard. My daughter is dying. The doctors can't help her. I found a note saying only the blood of an alpha can save her. He studied me with those unnerving amber eyes, his face unreadable. And you believe that? I believe I've tried everything else, I said, my voice cracking. I believe my 6-year-old daughter is slipping away while I stand here begging a stranger in the woods. I believe my grandmother wouldn't have given me this. I held up the pendant again. If it couldn't lead me to help when I needed it most. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath. Even the night creatures had fallen silent. What's your name? He asked finally. Emma. Emma Pierce. And your daughter? Lily. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the unnatural heat radiating from his body. His scent enveloped me, wild and earthy, like the forest after rain. You have no idea what you're asking for, Emma Pierce. His voice had dropped to almost a growl. No idea what price such help might demand. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze directly. Save my daughter, Alpha, and I'll pay any price. A bitter smile curved his lips. Dangerous words from someone who knows so little of our world. I know enough, I countered. Though the truth was, I knew only what my grandmother had shared in her stories. Tales of shapeshifters who ruled these mountains, of ancient packs and blood feuds, of magic that ran deeper than human science could ever reach. He circled me slowly, and I forced myself to stand my ground, though every instinct screamed at me to run. "And what makes you think I'm an alpha?" "The way you move," I said truthfully. "The way you speak. The fact that you're questioning me instead of simply tearing out my throat for trespassing." A low chuckle rumbled from his chest, the sound sending an involuntary shiver through me. "Perhaps I'm simply curious about a human foolish enough to wander into wolf territory alone at night." "I'm not alone," I said, touching the pendant. "My grandmother is with me." His eyes flashed at that, and for a moment, I glimpsed something beneath the cold exterior. A flicker of pain, perhaps, or memory. "Eleanor Pierce was known to us," he said carefully. "Was she one of you?" "No." His answer was quick, definitive. "But she understood our ways better than most humans." A howl rose in the distance, different from the earlier one, more urgent. The alpha's head snapped up, listening. Another howl answered, closer this time. "Your presence has been noticed," he said, his tone hardening again. "My pack approaches." Fear clutched at my throat. One wolf I might be able to reason with, especially one who'd known my grandmother. But a pack? "Please," I said again, desperation making my voice break. "My daughter has hours, maybe. If you won't help me, just kill me now. I have nothing to go back to if she dies." His eyes snapped to mine, something like surprise crossing his features. He studied me for a long moment, and I felt as though he was seeing beyond my face, reading the truth of my words in my very soul. "You truly would die for her," he said. Not a question. Without hesitation. The sounds of movement in the underbrush grew louder, the approaching pack no longer bothering with stealth. The alpha made a decision. In one fluid motion, he stepped forward and scooped me into his arms. I gasped, instinctively struggling against his iron grip. "Be still," he commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. "If you want to save your daughter, you'll have to trust me now." Trust a werewolf, a creature from stories meant to frighten children? But what choice did I have? I forced myself to relax in his arms as he began to move through the forest at inhuman speed, the trees blurring around us. His chest was solid against my side, his arms unyielding as they cradled me. Despite everything, I felt a bizarre sense of safety, or perhaps it was simply resignation to my fate. "Where are you taking me?" I managed to ask, my words whipped away by the rush of wind. "My territory," he replied tersely. "My rules." As we raced through the darkness, I closed my eyes and thought of Lily. Her gentle smile, her curious eyes, her tiny hand in mine. What would she think if she could see her mother now, carried through the night by a creature of legend? "This blood magic you seek," he said, after we'd traveled in silence for some time, his pace never slowing. "It comes with consequences. I told you. You'll pay any price," he finished for me. "So you said. But words are easy, Emma Pierce. Actions have weight, blood has power, and once given, such debts can never be undone. I understand." His laugh was harsh. "No, you don't. But you will." The forest began to thin, and suddenly we were emerging into a clearing. In the center stood a house, no, a mansion, its stone walls gleaming silver in the moonlight. Ancient and imposing, it seemed to grow from the very mountain itself, windows glowing with warm light despite the late hour. The alpha set me on my feet, but kept a hand on my arm, as though he expected me to flee, as if I had anywhere to go. "Welcome to Blackcrest," he said, his voice betraying nothing of what he thought about bringing a human to what was clearly the pack's stronghold, my home. "And you are?" I asked, realizing I still didn't know the name of the man, the wolf who held my daughter's fate in his hands. He regarded me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with a slight incline of his head that felt oddly formal, Evander Blackcrest, Alpha of the Northern Packs," he paused, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "And the last person your grandmother would want you to find." The pendant seemed to pulse against my skin, almost like a warning. But it was too late for warnings now. I had found the Alpha, and I had made my plea. Whatever dark past existed between him and my grandmother, whatever price he would demand, none of it mattered beside Lily's life. As Evander led me toward the mansion's heavy wooden doors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking willingly into the wolf's den, offering myself as sacrifice. But for Lily, I would walk through hell itself. Little did I know, that's exactly what I was about to do. The inside of Blackcrest Mansion was a study in contrasts. Rustic stone walls adorned with modern art, ancient timber beams supporting sleek light fixtures, antique furniture arranged around a state-of-the-art fireplace that cast dancing shadows across the great room. It was beautiful in a savage way, like the wolves who inhabited it. Evander's hand remained on my arm as he guided me through the entrance hall, past curious eyes that followed our progress. They looked human enough, men and women of various ages, but there was something in their watchful gazes that betrayed their true nature. The way they deferred to Evander with slight nods or averted eyes spoke volumes about the hierarchy at play. "Your pack is large," I murmured, trying to hide my nervousness as we passed a group of younger wolves who openly stared at me. "One of the largest in North America," Evander replied, a hint of pride in his tone. "Blackcrest has stood for over 200 years. We reached a grand staircase, and he led me upward. The higher we climbed, the fewer pack members we encountered, until we were alone in a corridor lined with heavy wooden doors. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice sounding small in the silent hallway. "My study. We need to talk privately before I decide whether to help your daughter." My heart sank. I had foolishly assumed that by bringing me to his home, he had already agreed to my plea. "You thought wrong," he cut me off. "I've brought you here because of that pendant and the name you carry, nothing more." He opened a door at the end of the hall and ushered me inside. The study was impressive, walls lined with books, a massive desk of polished wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the forest below. The moon hung full and bright in the sky, bathing the room in silvery light. Evander released my arm and moved to stand behind his desk, putting a barrier between us. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. "Tell me about your daughter's illness," he commanded, leaning forward slightly, hands resting flat on the desk's surface. I swallowed hard and gathered my thoughts. "It started 3 weeks ago, just a fever at first. The doctors thought it was a common virus, but it didn't respond to treatment. Then she began having seizures and her blood work." I paused, remembering the doctor's confused expression. They said her blood was changing somehow, in ways they couldn't explain. Her organs started failing 2 days ago. "And the note? Who left it?" "I don't know." I reached into my pocket and withdrew the small piece of parchment, its edges worn from how many times I'd unfolded and refolded it. I placed it on the desk between us. Evander picked it up, his brow furrowing as he read the elegant script. "Only the blood of an alpha can save her now." "This wasn't written by a human," he said after a moment. I assumed as much. He studied me, his amber eyes calculating. "And you came alone, into werewolf territory, on the strength of an anonymous note and your grandmother's pendant. I had no other options left." Desperate indeed. He set the note down and leaned back, crossing his arms. "What do you know of your grandmother's connection to my pack?" I shifted uncomfortably under his intense gaze. "Very little. She told me stories about the werewolves in these mountains, but I always thought they were just fairy tales. It wasn't until she was dying that she gave me the pendant and made me promise to keep it safe. She never mentioned me specifically?" I shook my head. "No, but she did say that if I ever found myself in grave danger, the pendant would lead me to those who could help." A shadow passed across his face. "Eleanor and I had history." Something in his tone made me shiver. "What kind of history?" His lips curved in a humorless smile. "The kind best left buried." Before I could press further, the door to the study swung open. A woman entered without knocking, tall and lithe, with sharp features and dark hair pulled back in a severe braid. Her eyes, a startling blue, fixed on me with open hostility. "So it's true," she said, her voice cold. "You've brought a human into our home, Evander." "Serena." Evander's tone held warning. I don't recall summoning you. The entire pack is talking about it. She moved further into the room, circling me slowly like a predator assessing prey. Eleanor Pierce's granddaughter, no less. Have you lost your mind? I stood my ground, though every instinct screamed at me to shrink away from her scrutiny. Her scent was different from Evander's, sharper, with undertones of something metallic. My business with Emma is private, Evander said, his voice deceptively calm. Serena laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Private? Nothing in a pack is private, Alpha, especially not when it concerns her bloodline. The way she spat the word her made it clear she held no love for my grandmother. Enough. The single word reverberated with power, making the hair on my arms stand on end. Evander hadn't raised his voice, but the command in it was unmistakable. Serena's posture changed immediately, her shoulders dropping slightly, her chin lowering in a gesture of submission that seemed to pain her. The council won't like this, she said, though her tone had lost its edge. The council answers to me, not the other way around. Evander came around the desk, positioning himself subtly between me and Serena. Now leave us. For a moment I thought she might refuse. Then, with a last venomous glance in my direction, she turned and stalked from the room, closing the door with more force than necessary. You're beta? I guessed, remembering my grandmother's explanations of pack hierarchy. Evander's eyebrows rose slightly. You know more than you let on. I know the basics. Alpha, beta, the pack structure. My grandmother made sure of that much, at least. Serena is indeed my beta. His tone suggested there was more to the story, but he didn't elaborate. Instead, he moved to a cabinet near the window and withdrew 2 crystal glasses and a decanter filled with amber liquid. Drink, he said, pouring a generous measure into one glass and offering it to me. You look like you need it. I accepted the glass but didn't drink immediately. Will you help Lily? Evander poured himself a drink and took a long swallow before answering. The blood of an alpha can heal many things, but it's not a simple matter of donation. There's ritual involved, and consequences. What consequences? He set his glass down and fixed me with a penetrating stare. Blood creates bonds, Emma, especially alpha blood. If I do this, your daughter will be connected to me, to my pack, for the rest of her life. My hand tightened around the glass. Connected how? She would become pack-adjacent, not wolf, but not entirely human either. She would be drawn to us, and we to her. She would be under my protection, but also subject to certain influences. What influences? Heightened senses, accelerated healing, sensitivity to the phases of the moon. He paused, and a bond with me that neither time nor distance could break. The implication sent a chill through me. And what would you expect in return? His smile was grim. Now we come to it. The price. I lifted my chin, steeling myself. Name it. You, he said simply. Your service to the pack for 1 year and a day. Here, at Blackcrest. The room seemed to tilt around me. You want me to stay here? For a year? That is my price. His eyes never left mine. Your daughter receives my blood and the chance to live. In return, you remain here, serving the pack however I deem necessary. What about Lily? I can't leave her alone. She would stay with you, of course. Once healed, the bond would require her to be near the pack anyway, at least initially. My mind raced. A year of my life, of both our lives, among werewolves. Away from our home, our routines, everything familiar. But what was a year compared to Lily's life? What would this service entail? I asked cautiously. Whatever I require, he said, his voice low. Your grandmother had certain abilities that proved useful to the pack. If you've inherited even a fraction of her talents, you could be valuable to us. Abilities? I frowned. I don't understand. Evander studied me with those unnerving amber eyes. You truly don't know, do you? He shook his head slightly. Eleanor kept more from you than I realized. Know what? He moved closer, and I had to force myself not to step back. Your grandmother was a healer, Emma. Not just with herbs and poultices, but with a gift that few humans possess. She could sense the injuries that ran deeper than flesh, the wounds of the soul, the fractures in a wolf's inner being, and she could mend them. I stared at him, uncomprehending. My practical, no-nonsense grandmother, who'd taught me to bandage scrapes and brew tea for colds, a mystical healer of werewolf souls? That's why the pendant led you here, he continued. It's attuned to our kind, drawn to those in need of healing. My fingers found the pendant at my throat, feeling its warmth. And you need healing? His expression hardened. My pack does. We've suffered losses. There was something he wasn't telling me, something in the way his jaw tightened when he spoke of losses. I'm not my grandmother, I said finally. I don't have her gifts, whatever they were. You don't know that. He circled me slowly, his gaze assessing. The pendant responded to you. It brought you here, to me. That's not coincidence. It brought me here because my daughter is dying, I countered, not because I have some magical healing ability. Perhaps both, he suggested. Fate rarely deals in single threads. I took a steadying breath. If I agree to stay, to try to be whatever it is you think I am, you'll save Lily? Tonight? The ritual requires preparation, he said, but yes, we could perform it before dawn. Dawn. How many hours away? How many hours did Lily have left? As if reading my thoughts, Evander added, Time moves differently for our kind. What takes your doctors days to diagnose, I can sense in moments. What requires their weeks of treatment, our ritual can accomplish in a single night. Hope, dangerous and fragile, flickered to life within me. Then yes, I agree to your terms. 1 year and a day in service to your pack, in exchange for Lily's life. Evander's expression remained impassive, but something flashed in his eyes. Satisfaction, perhaps. Or triumph. The bargain is struck, he said formally. But know this, Emma Pierce, there is no breaking such a pact once made. Should you attempt to flee before your service is complete, the consequences would be severe. Not just for you, but for your daughter as well. Fear knotted in my stomach, but I nodded. I understand. I don't think you do. He moved with supernatural speed, suddenly so close I could feel his breath against my cheek. You're binding yourself to a pack led by a wolf with a past dark enough to make your grandmother warn you away. I am not a kind master, Emma, and the year ahead will test you in ways you cannot imagine. His proximity was overwhelming. The heat of him, the wild scent, the sheer power that seemed to radiate from his body. I fought the urge to step back, to show weakness. My daughter's life is worth any test, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Something that might have been respect flickered across his features. He stepped back, reclaiming the space between us. Then we begin tonight. He strode to the door and opened it, revealing a young woman waiting in the hallway, as though she'd been there all along. Mira will prepare you. The ritual requires cleansing, and there are protocols. Mira stepped forward, petite with a mass of curly red hair and gentle eyes that seemed out of place among the wolves. Follow me, she said softly. I hesitated, looking back at Evander. What about Lily? She's still at the hospital. I've already sent wolves to retrieve her, he replied, and my heart lurched at the thought of werewolves stalking through hospital corridors toward my daughter's room. They won't harm her, he added, noting my expression. They know the price of failure. There was a threat in those words, though not directed at me. I realized with a chill that Evander's power over his pack was absolute, and likely maintained through fear as much as respect. What had I gotten myself into? What had I bound my daughter to? But it was too late for second thoughts. The bargain was struck. As I followed Mira from the room, I felt Evander's eyes on my back, watching, calculating, measuring my worth to his pack. And I wondered, not for the first time, what darkness lay in his past that made my grandmother's pendant burn against my skin like a warning. The ritual chamber beneath Blackcrest Mansion was ancient, a circular room carved directly into the mountain's heart. Runes I didn't recognize adorned the walls, their edges worn smooth by centuries of hands tracing their patterns. Massive stone pillars supported the domed ceiling, from which hung iron chandeliers filled with dozens of candles, their flames casting a warm, golden light that failed to dispel the chamber's inherent chill. Mira had been gentle but thorough in her preparations. She'd helped me bathe in water infused with herbs that left my skin tingling, and dressed me in a simple white shift that fell to my ankles. My hair, still damp, hung loose down my back. "It's tradition," she'd explained when I questioned the garment. "White for purity of intention. The ritual demands certain formalities." Now I stood at the chamber's edge, barefoot on the cold stone floor, watching as pack members filed in silently. They formed a circle around a raised stone dais in the center, their faces solemn in the candlelight. Some regarded me with curiosity, others with open suspicion. Serena, the beta, stood directly opposite me across the circle, her blue eyes hard as ice. The pendant at my throat pulsed warmly, as if responding to the ancient energy that seemed to hum in the very stones beneath my feet. A hush fell over the gathered wolves as Evander entered, carrying something in his arms. My heart leaped to my throat. Lily. My daughter looked impossibly small and fragile in Evander's powerful arms, her fair hair a pale halo against the dark fabric of his shirt. Her skin had the waxy, translucent quality that had terrified me for days, and the dark circles beneath her eyes stood out starkly. But she was here, alive, if barely. I took an involuntary step forward, every maternal instinct screaming to reclaim my child. But Mira's hand on my arm held me back. "Wait," she whispered. "The ritual has begun. You mustn't break the circle." Evander carried Lily to the stone dais and laid her down with surprising gentleness. Her small body seemed to sink into the plush furs that had been arranged there, white against black. Another symbol, perhaps. He straightened and addressed the gathering, his deep voice resonating in the chamber. "Tonight we honor an ancient pact, a debt of blood owed to the line of Pierce." His eyes found mine across the circle. "Emma Pierce comes before us to claim that debt, not for herself, but for her daughter." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Clearly this was news to many of them. "What debt?" Serena's voice cut through the whispers. "The pack owes nothing to humans." Evander's gaze shifted to his beta, and though his expression remained impassive, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You forget yourself, Serena," he said, each word carrying the weight of his authority. "The debt is mine to acknowledge and mine to pay." Serena's jaw tightened, but she lowered her eyes in submission. The challenge, however brief, had been answered. Evander turned back to me. "Step forward, Emma Pierce, and state your claim." Mira released my arm, and I moved into the circle, acutely aware of the wolves' eyes tracking my every movement. The stone was cold beneath my bare feet as I approached the dais where my daughter lay unconscious. "I claim the blood debt owed to the line of Pierce," I said, the words coming to me as if from some ancestral memory. "I ask the Alpha of Blackcrest to heal my daughter, Lily Pierce, with the power of his blood, freely given." "And what do you offer in return?" Evander asked, his voice formal. "My service to the pack for 1 year and 1 day, I replied, my voice steady despite the fear coiling in my stomach. "My loyalty, my labor, and whatever gifts I may possess." Evander nodded once, accepting my pledge. He extended his hand to me, palm up. "The pendant." I hesitated only a moment before lifting the chain from around my neck. The silver wolf with its emerald eyes seemed to catch the light with unnatural brilliance. I placed it in Evander's waiting hand. He closed his fingers around it and turned to a small table beside the dais. Upon it rested a stone bowl, an ornate silver dagger, and several small vials of liquid. Evander added the pendant to the collection of items, then lifted the dagger. "Blood calls to blood," he intoned, drawing the blade across his palm in one swift motion. Dark blood welled from the cut, thicker than human blood, and with a faint, otherworldly shimmer. He held his hand over the bowl, allowing the blood to pool within it. "Ancestral spirits, guardians of the pack, hear my plea," he continued. "I, Evander Blackcrest, Alpha of the Northern Packs, offer my blood to heal this child, to bind her to our protection, to welcome her into our keeping." He dipped the pendant into the blood, coating the silver wolf completely. Then he added the contents of 3 vials, one by one, murmuring words in a language I didn't recognize with each addition. The mixture in the bowl began to smoke faintly, giving off a scent like cedar and something wilder, blood and earth and moonlight. Evander lifted his eyes to mine. The mother's blood must join with the alpha's. Your hand, Emma. I swallowed hard, but extended my hand without hesitation. The cut when it came was quick and relatively painless, the blade so sharp it parted my skin with minimal resistance. I watched as my blood dripped into the bowl, mingling with Evander's, the mixture turning a deep, rich crimson. Blood of the mother, blood of the alpha, joined in purpose, joined in power, Evander said, stirring the mixture with the tip of the dagger. What is broken shall be mended, what is weak shall be made strong. He lifted the bowl and moved to Lily's side. Dipping 2 fingers into the mixture, he traced a symbol on her forehead, a crescent moon with a small star nestled in its curve. From this night forward, Lily Pierce stands under the protection of the Alpha of Blackcrest, Evander declared. Her life is bound to mine, her fate to the fate of the pack. He placed the pendant, still coated in our mingled blood, upon Lily's chest, directly over her heart. Then he placed one hand on her forehead, the other over the pendant. With my blood, I command the sickness to depart, he said, his voice taking on a resonance that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. With my power, I seal this child's life to mine. What harms her harms me. What threatens her threatens the pack. So it is pledged, so it shall be. The air in the chamber grew thick, charged with an energy that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. The candle flames bent and swayed as if in a strong wind, though the air remained still. Several of the wolves shifted uncomfortably, sensing the buildup of power. Evander closed his eyes, his face a mask of concentration. Beneath his hands, Lily's body went rigid, her back arching slightly off the furs. A soft gasp escaped her lips, the first sound I'd heard her make in days. "What's happening?" I whispered, taking a step forward. Mira's hand on my arm stopped me once more. "The sickness is being drawn out," she murmured. "Watch." To my horror, a dark mist began to seep from Lily's pores, a blackish-purple vapor that coiled and writhed as if alive. It gathered above her body, forming a churning cloud that seemed to pulse with malevolent intent. Evander opened his eyes, which now blazed with an inner golden fire. "Begone," he commanded, his voice no longer entirely human. "You have no claim on this child. I cast you back to shadow." The mist shuddered, as if resisting his command. For a moment, it seemed to take on a vague shape, something with too many limbs and empty, hungry eyes. Then, with a sound like distant thunder, it dissipated, scattering into nothing. The chamber fell utterly silent. Evander swayed slightly, one hand bracing himself against the stone dais. The power that had filled him moments before seemed to have exacted a toll. "It is done," he said, his voice rough. I pushed past Mira and rushed to Lily's side. Already, color was returning to her cheeks, the waxy pallor giving way to a healthy flush. The pendant rested on her chest, the blood now absorbed completely, leaving the silver clean and gleaming. "Lily?" I touched her face, my hand trembling. "Baby, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, then opened. The blue eyes that met mine were clear for the first time in weeks, free of pain and fever. "Mommy?" she whispered. A sob escaped me as I gathered her into my arms, holding her close, feeling her heart beat strong and steady against mine. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Over Lily's head, my eyes met Evander's. The Alpha looked drained, his normally imposing presence diminished by the effort of the ritual. Yet as he watched us, something flickered in his gaze, something that might have been longing or regret. "Thank you," I said, the words wholly inadequate for what he had done. He inclined his head slightly, accepting my gratitude, then turned to address the pack. "The ritual is complete. The debt is acknowledged and payment arranged. Emma and Lily Pierce are now under pack protection. Any who harm them, answer directly to me." His eyes lingered on Serena as he said this, the warning unmistakable. The beta's face was a careful blank, but I could sense her displeasure radiating like heat. "The council will want to discuss this," she said, her voice just short of insubordinate. "The council may discuss whatever they wish," Evander replied coldly. "My decision stands." With that, he turned and strode from the chamber, the pack parting before him like water around stone. One by one, the others followed, until only Mira, Lily, and I remained. "He used a great deal of power tonight," Mira said quietly, watching the doorway through which Evander had departed. "More than was strictly necessary for the healing." I looked down at Lily, who had drifted back into sleep, a natural, peaceful sleep this time. "What do you mean?" "The sickness in your daughter wasn't natural," Mira explained, helping me lift Lily from the dais. "It was a curse. Powerful magic, and very specific. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. Someone deliberately made her sick. Who would do that?" Mira's expression was grave. "Someone who knew the pendant would lead you here. Someone who wanted you at Blackcrest. But why?" She glanced toward the doorway, as if ensuring we were truly alone. "Evander has enemies, both within the pack and without. Enemies who might use any weapon against him, even a human woman and her child." I clutched Lily closer, protective instincts surging. "You're saying we were bait? To what end?" "I don't know," Mira admitted. "But I'd be careful who you trust here, Emma. Blackcrest has many secrets, and some of them are stained in blood." With that cryptic warning, she led us from the chamber, up winding stone stairs and through corridors until we reached a suite of rooms on the mansion's eastern wing. "These will be your quarters," she said, opening a heavy wooden door. Evander had them prepared while the ritual was being set up. The rooms were surprisingly pleasant. A sitting room with comfortable furniture, a bedroom for me, and a smaller one for Lily. Large windows looked out over the forest, though heavy curtains could be drawn for privacy. A fire burned cheerfully in the hearth, taking the edge off the night's chill. "There are clothes in the wardrobes for both of you," Mira continued. "Toiletries in the bathroom. Food will be brought up shortly. You both need to regain your strength." I laid Lily gently on the bed in the smaller bedroom, tucking the covers around her. Her breathing was deep and even, her forehead cool to my touch. The pendant still hung around her neck, and I wondered if I should remove it. Something told me it was safer to leave it in place, at least for now. When I returned to the sitting room, Mira was still there, hovering near the door, as if uncertain whether to leave. "You have questions," she said, reading my expression. I sank onto one of the sofas, suddenly aware of how exhausted I was. 1,000 of them. But I'll settle for the most important. Why did Evander agree to heal Lily? What is this debt he speaks of? Mira hesitated, clearly weighing how much to reveal. "It's not my place to share the Alpha's personal history. It became my personal history the moment I bound myself to his pack for a year," I countered. "If I'm walking into danger, I deserve to know why," she sighed, relenting. "Your grandmother, Eleanor, saved Evander's life once, long ago. Not just his body, but his soul." "How?" "He was lost to his wolf, consumed by rage and grief after his mate was killed. For months he was more beast than man, unable to shift back to human form. The pack was falling apart without their alpha. Eleanor was brought to him as a last resort." "And she healed him somehow?" Mira nodded. "She had a gift for reaching the human soul within the wolf. She stayed at Blackcrest for nearly a year, working with Evander daily, pulling him back piece by piece from the darkness that had claimed him. I tried to reconcile this tale with my memories of my practical, no-nonsense grandmother. Why didn't she ever tell me about this? Because by the end, things had complicated between them. Mira looked away. Healers and those they heal often form bonds. Boundaries blur. Hearts become entangled. Understanding dawned. "Are you saying my grandmother and Evander were in love?" "Yes, deeply so." Mira's voice softened. "But your grandmother was human and already married to your grandfather. Evander was alpha, with responsibilities to his pack. Their paths could never truly merge." "So she left," I said, pieces falling into place. "She went back to her human life, to my grandfather." "She did what she believed was right," Mira agreed, "but neither of them ever truly recovered from the parting. That's the debt Evander speaks of. Not just that she saved his life, but that he believes he drove her away from a world where she belonged." I thought of the pendant, the way Evander had recognized it immediately. A gift from him to my grandmother, perhaps. "And now he thinks I have her gift," I said. "He thinks I can heal whatever's wrong with his pack." Mira's expression grew troubled. The pack has suffered losses. Unexplained deaths, wolves turning against one another, bonds of loyalty fraying. Evander believes there's a curse at work, similar to what afflicted your daughter, but slower, more insidious. And he thinks I can lift it? I asked incredulously. I'm a high school art teacher, not a mystic. Gifts often skip generations, Mira said with a shrug. And the pendant led you here, just as it once led your grandmother. That alone suggests you have something of her abilities. Before I could argue further, a knock at the door announced the arrival of food, a tray laden with bread, cheese, fruit, and a carafe of wine. Mira used the interruption to make her exit, pausing only to add one final warning. Whatever happens in the days ahead, remember that not everyone at Blackcrest welcomes your presence. Watch yourself, Emma Pierce, and watch your daughter. With that, she was gone, leaving me alone with my sleeping child. A year of servitude stretching before us, and the distinct feeling that I'd stepped into a power struggle I didn't understand. I moved to the window, looking out at the moon riding high above the forest. Somewhere in those woods, werewolves ran beneath its light. And one of them, their alpha, had saved my daughter's life, binding her to him in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. What price would we ultimately pay for that salvation, and what secrets lay buried in Evander Blackcrest's dark past? As if in answer, the pendant at Lily's throat glimmered in the moonlight, a silent reminder that some questions are better left unasked, until you're ready to face the answers. Morning arrived with golden light filtering through the curtains I'd forgotten to close. For a moment, disorientation gripped me. The unfamiliar room, the too-soft bed, the silence where hospital machines should have been beeping. Then the events of the previous night flooded back, and I bolted upright. Lily! I rushed to her room, heart pounding. She was still asleep, but the change in her was miraculous. The sickly pallor had vanished completely, replaced by healthy color. Her breathing was deep and even. Her small body relaxed in slumber rather than tensed with pain. The pendant still rested against her chest, catching the morning light. Relief made my knees weak. I sank onto the edge of her bed, brushing a strand of fair hair from her forehead. Whatever else happened, whatever price we ultimately paid, Evander had kept his word. My daughter was healed. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my reverie. I found Mira waiting in the hallway, a tray of breakfast balanced in her hands. Good morning, she said, her smile warm. I thought you might be hungry. Thank you. I stepped back to let her in, grateful for the simple kindness. She set the tray on the small table near the window, pastries, fruit, and a steaming pot of coffee that made my stomach growl in anticipation. I hadn't realized how hungry I was. How is she? Mira asked, nodding toward Lily's room. Better. Much better. I poured myself coffee, the rich aroma making me close my eyes in appreciation. When will she wake? Soon, I imagine. The ritual takes a toll, but children recover quickly. Mira hesitated. Evander wishes to see you once you've eaten. I paused with the cup halfway to my lips. Why? Your service begins today. Her expression turned apologetic. He's not a patient man. I see. I set the cup down. Appetite suddenly diminished. And Lily? I'll stay with her, Mira offered. She shouldn't be alone when she wakes in a strange place. I studied her, remembering her warning from the previous night. Why are you helping us? You barely know me. Mira's smile turned sad. I knew your grandmother. She was kind to me when others in the pack were not. She touched her hair self-consciously. A human living among wolves is never fully accepted. Eleanor understood that better than most. You're human. I hadn't realized. Half human, she corrected. My mother was pack. My father a human she fell in love with. I was born with enough wolf blood to be tolerated, but not enough to shift. The complexity of pack politics was already giving me a headache. And Evander accepts you? Evander values loyalty above lineage. She glanced at the door. You shouldn't keep him waiting. I nodded, resigned. Where do I find him? His study. Do you remember the way? I did, unfortunately. With a last look at Lily's sleeping form, I steeled myself and headed into the lion's den. Or wolf's den, more accurately. The mansion was alive with activity in the daylight. Pack members moved through the halls with purpose, some acknowledging me with curious glances, others deliberately ignoring my presence. I caught snatches of conversation as I passed, talk of patrols, territory disputes, and, more than once, whispers about the human and Eleanor's granddaughter. By the time I reached Evander's study, my nerves were stretched taut. I knocked firmly, determined not to show weakness. Enter. The Alpha was standing at the window when I walked in, his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. Sunlight silhouetted his powerful frame, catching in his dark hair. He'd changed from the formal attire of the ritual to more casual clothes, jeans and a simple black Henley that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. "You wanted to see me," I said, skipping pleasantries. He turned, those amber eyes assessing me in the daylight. I was suddenly conscious of my borrowed clothes, a simple blouse and pants that Mira must have left for me, and my hair, hastily pulled back from my face. "How is your daughter?" he asked, his voice neutral. "Recovering. Thank you." He nodded once, accepting my gratitude. The bond has taken root. I can feel her life force now, connected to the pack. The casual way he spoke of mystical bonds made me uneasy. What exactly does that mean for Lily? It means she'll heal faster than a normal human child. She'll be stronger, with keener senses. He moved to his desk. It also means she'll be drawn to the pack, especially to me as the Alpha whose blood she carries. She'll feel safest in our territory, and when our year is up, a shadow crossed his face. Distance will weaken the bond, but never break it entirely. She'll always feel the pull of Blackcrest. I swallowed hard. What had I done to my child in my desperation to save her? "You're wondering if you made a mistake," Evander said, reading my expression with unnerving accuracy. "You didn't. Your daughter would have died without the ritual." "I know." I met his gaze directly, "and I'll honor our agreement. What service do you require of me?" He gestured to a chair, an invitation to sit. I did so, though part of me wanted to remain standing, to maintain some illusion of equal footing. As Mira may have told you, the pack is troubled. Evander remained standing, pacing slowly behind his desk. Bonds that have held for generations are fraying. Pack members who have been loyal for decades are turning on each other. Some have died. Mira mentioned a curse. His eyes sharpened. "She's spoken to you about pack business?" "Only in generalities," I said quickly, not wanting to get her in trouble. She thought I should understand why I'm here. Evander's jaw tightened. "Mira sometimes forgets her place." "She was trying to help." "Help?" His laugh was harsh. "By telling a human about our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities?" "I'm hardly a threat to your pack," I pointed out. "And if I'm to be of service, doesn't it make sense for me to understand what's wrong?" He studied me for a long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. "Very well. Yes, I believe there is a curse at work, similar to what afflicted your daughter, but more subtle, designed to work slowly, to destroy us from within. Who would do such a thing? We have enemies." His voice was grim. "Other packs who covet our territory. Hunters who would see all werewolves eradicated. And there are darker forces at work in the world than most humans realize. And you think I can help? Because of my grandmother?" Eleanor had a gift for sensing corruption, for seeing the darkness that takes root in a soul and drawing it out. Evander's eyes held mine. "If you possess even a fraction of her ability, you could help us identify who among the pack has been compromised." "You think one of your own wolves is responsible?" The idea shocked me. "Or being used as a vessel," he sighed, suddenly looking weary. "Dark magic requires a conduit. Someone within the pack is either working against us willingly or being manipulated to do so." "And you want me to... what? Identify the traitor?" "I want you to use the pendant," he said, nodding to my throat where the silver wolf now hung again. Mira must have returned it to me after the ritual. It's attuned to the pack's energy. In the right hands, it can reveal corruption. I touched the pendant reflexively. "I don't know how to use it. I don't have any mystical abilities that I'm aware of. Eleanor didn't think she did either at first." His voice softened slightly. "The gift awakens with need and practice. And if I can't do what you're asking, if I don't have her gift, His expression hardened again. Then you'll serve the pack in other ways. A bargain is a bargain, Emma Pierce. The threat was subtle but clear. I had bound myself to this man, this wolf, for a year. He would extract his pound of flesh one way or another. When do we start? I asked, resigned. Now. He moved to the door. I'll introduce you to the pack formally. You'll need to observe them, interact with them. The pendant will respond to those who have been touched by the curse, if you learn to listen to it. I stood, squaring my shoulders. And Lily? She'll remain with Mira for now. The bond needs time to settle. Too much stimulation could be overwhelming for her. I didn't like the idea of being separated from my daughter, but I nodded. One day at a time. That's how we would get through this year. As we walked through the mansion, I was acutely aware of the stares following us. Some curious, some hostile. Evander led me to a large room at the back of the house, a sort of great hall with a massive stone fireplace and long tables. Many of the pack were gathered there, conversations falling silent as we entered. Evander moved to the head of the room, and I followed, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. Many of you witnessed the ritual last night, Evander began without preamble. For those who didn't, this is Emma Pierce, granddaughter of Eleanor Pierce. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The name clearly meant something to them all. She and her daughter will be staying at Black Crest for a year and a day, under my protection and in service to the pack. His eyes swept the room, a clear challenge to anyone who might object. Emma possesses certain gifts that may help us address the troubles we've faced. I felt myself flush under the scrutiny of so many eyes, gifts I wasn't sure I had, a task I wasn't sure I could accomplish. Some of you will be asked to work with her directly, Evander continued. I expect your full cooperation. From the corner of my eye, I saw Serena watching from the edge of the room, her blue eyes cold. She didn't look pleased by this announcement. Mira will act as Emma's guide until she's familiar with Blackcrest and our ways, Evander concluded. Any who have concerns may bring them directly to me. With that abrupt ending, he turned to leave. Uncertain whether to follow, I hesitated, only to find myself suddenly surrounded by pack members, their curiosity overcoming their reserve. You really Eleanor's granddaughter? Can you heal like she could? Is it true your daughter carries alpha blood now? The questions came fast, overwhelming me. I backed up a step, feeling the pendant grow warm against my skin. Give her space, came a commanding voice, not Evander's, but nearly as authoritative. The crowd parted to reveal a man I hadn't met, tall and lean, with silver threading his dark hair and beard. His eyes were a startling gray, and they assessed me with intelligence. Gabriel. He introduced himself with a slight inclination of his head. Pack healer and council elder. Your grandmother was a dear friend. You knew her well? I asked, grateful for the intervention. As well as anyone here, save perhaps Evander himself. His smile was kind, but tinged with sadness. She spoke of you often. This surprised me. She did? Oh yes, she was quite proud of you, though worried about your potential inheritance. My gift, you mean? It can be a burden as much as a blessing. To see into the souls of others, to feel their pain as your own. His gaze drifted to the pendant. That's why she left it to you. A tool, but also a warning. A warning of what? Gabriel's expression grew somber. That some wounds are too deep to heal. Some souls too far gone to save. Before I could ask more, Evander reappeared at my side. I see you've met our healer, he said, his tone carefully neutral. We were just discussing Eleanor, Gabriel replied, his manner equally guarded. Something passed between the two men. An old tension, perhaps, or rivalry. I filed it away for future consideration. Emma will be joining you in the infirmary this afternoon, Evander said. To begin her training. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. Indeed. And does Emma have any medical background? I took basic first aid courses for my teaching certification, I offered, but nothing beyond that. We'll start with the basics, Evander said dismissively. For now, I need to show her the grounds. Gabriel bowed slightly. As you wish, Alpha. Emma, I look forward to working with you. As he moved away, I turned to Evander. Is he trustworthy? A flash of surprise crossed Evander's face. You're learning to be cautious. Good. He lowered his voice. Gabriel has served this pack longer than I've been Alpha. He was Eleanor's closest ally here. And her confidant. Was that a yes or a no? His lips quirked in what might almost have been a smile. It was an observation. Trust should be earned, not given freely, especially at Black Crest. With that cryptic response, he led me from the hall and out into the crisp mountain air. The day had begun, and with it, my service to the pack. Little did I know that before the sun set again, I would witness firsthand the darkness corrupting Black Crest and discover that the pendant around my neck was both blessing and curse, just as Gabriel had warned. The infirmary occupied the mansion's western wing, a series of rooms equipped with a surprising mix of modern medical technology and ancient remedies. Glass cabinets held neatly labeled herbs alongside pharmaceutical drugs. An examination table with sophisticated monitoring equipment stood near shelves lined with leather-bound books and stone mortar and pestles. We blend old and new, Gabriel explained as he showed me around that afternoon. Some ailments respond better to traditional treatments, others to modern medicine. I ran my fingers along the spine of a particularly ancient tome. And werewolf healing? I thought you recovered from injuries naturally. We heal faster than humans, yes. But not instantaneously, and not from everything. Gabriel's expression darkened, especially not from the affliction currently plaguing the pack. Evander called it a curse, a simplification, but not inaccurate. He pulled a book from the shelf and opened it to a marked page. See here? These symptoms, paranoia, aggression, deterioration of pack bonds, physical wasting, they match what we're seeing. The illustrations in the book were disturbing. Wolves with hollow eyes and emaciated bodies. Humans with dark veins spreading across their skin like cracks in glass. This has happened before? 3 centuries ago. To a pack in Eastern Europe, Gabriel's voice was grim. Only 7 survived out of nearly 100. A chill ran through me. And you think the same thing is happening here? The patterns match. He closed the book carefully, but the source remains elusive. Whatever, or whoever, is causing it covers their tracks well. Evander thinks I can help identify the source. Gabriel studied me thoughtfully. Because of your grandmother's gift, the ability to see corruption in the soul. I don't know if I have her gift. The pendant wouldn't have led you here if you didn't. He nodded toward the silver wolf at my throat. It's been in your family for generations, passed from healer to healer. This was news to me. I thought Evander gave it to my grandmother. Gabriel's eyebrows rose. Is that what he told you? He implied it. Interesting. Gabriel moved to a cabinet and began measuring herbs into small pouches. The pendant is much older than Evander's relationship with Eleanor. It belonged to your family long before she came to Black Crest. Another lie by omission from the Alpha? Or simply a misunderstanding? If I do have this gift, I said, redirecting the conversation, how do I use it? How will I know who's been corrupted? Gabriel handed me one of the pouches. Crush these herbs between your palms when you're with someone you suspect. The scent will help focus your abilities, make the pendant more responsive. And then? Then you listen to what it tells you. His gray eyes held mine. Your grandmother described it as a sensation of heat or cold, and sometimes visions, flashes of the person's true nature. It sounded more like hallucination than mystical insight, but I pocketed the pouch. I'll try. That's all anyone can ask. His smile was kind. Now, let me show you some basic treatments. If you're to work here, you should know how to dress a wound at least. The rest of the afternoon passed in practical instruction. Gabriel was a patient teacher, and I found myself relaxing in his presence. He spoke of my grandmother often, sharing stories of her time at Black Crest that painted a picture of a woman far more complex than the grandmother I'd known. She was respected here, he told me as we organized supplies. Feared by some, perhaps, but respected by all. She could see into a wolf's soul and heal what was broken there. Why didn't she ever tell me about any of this? About Evander and Black Crest? Gabriel sighed. She wanted to protect you from this world for as long as possible. Our kind brings danger as well as power. But she gave me the pendant. Insurance, I suspect, in case you ever needed it. He paused in his work. Eleanor knew your gift would manifest eventually, especially if you had children. The ability often skips a generation, but strengthens in the presence of maternal bonds. I thought of Lily, sleeping peacefully back in our rooms under Mira's watchful eye. Will my daughter have this gift too? Perhaps, but her connection to the pack through Evander's blood may alter how it manifests. Before I could ask more, the infirmary door burst open. 2 wolves carried a third between them, a young woman, her body limp, face contorted in pain. What happened? Gabriel demanded, clearing the examination table. Found her collapsed in the eastern woods, one of the wolves panted. She was on patrol and missed her check-in. They laid her on the table, and I gasped. Dark veins spread across her pale skin, pulsing with a sickly purple light. Her eyes, when they flickered open, were clouded with the same unnatural hue. The corruption, Gabriel muttered. It's accelerating. The pendant at my throat turned ice cold against my skin. Without thinking, I reached into my pocket for the herbs Gabriel had given me, crushing them between my palms and inhaling deeply. The world shifted around me. The infirmary's walls seemed to fade, and I saw the young wolf woman surrounded by writhing shadows, tendrils of darkness coiling around her like hungry serpents. They pulsed in time with the veins on her skin, feeding on her life force. Emma? Gabriel's voice seemed to come from far away. What do you see? Darkness, I whispered. It's consuming her. Acting on instinct, I placed one hand on the pendant and the other on the woman's forehead. Heat flooded through me, racing down my arm. The pendant blazed with light, visible only to my altered sight. The shadow tendrils recoiled from the light, writhing in silent agony. The woman on the table arched her back, a scream tearing from her throat. The dark veins pulsed faster, brighter, as if fighting back against my intervention. Hold her down, I heard myself say, my voice strangely calm. Hands gripped the woman's shoulders and legs, restraining her thrashing body. I closed my eyes, focusing on the pendant's energy, directing it toward the darkness I could sense coiled within her. Get out, I commanded, the words coming from some ancestral memory rather than conscious thought. You don't belong in her. Get out. The pendant grew hotter, painfully so, searing my skin through my blouse. The woman's scream rose to an inhuman pitch, and then, with a sound like glass shattering, the darkness broke. Black mist poured from her mouth, her eyes, her very pores, coalescing into a writhing mass above the table. For a moment, it hung there, a malevolent presence with a terrible awareness. It seemed to look at me with hatred, though it had no eyes. Then, like ink dispersing in water, it dissolved. The woman collapsed back onto the table, unconscious but breathing evenly. The unnatural veins faded from her skin, leaving her pale but unmarked. I staggered back, suddenly exhausted. Strong hands caught me before I could fall. Not Gabriel's, but Evander's. I hadn't even noticed him enter the infirmary. What did you do? He demanded, his voice tight with barely contained emotion. I don't know, I admitted, leaning against him despite myself. I saw the darkness. I told it to leave her. Gabriel was examining the woman, his expression incredulous. The corruption is gone, completely gone. He looked up at me, awe in his eyes. You didn't just mask it or slow it like our treatments. You banished it. Is that good? My head was spinning, the room tilting around me. It's unprecedented, Evander said, his arm tightening around my waist. No one has been able to reverse the corruption once it's taken hold. Your grandmother could ease suffering, create barriers against further corruption, Gabriel added, but even she couldn't extract it entirely. The implications of what I'd done began to sink in. If I could heal one affected wolf, I could potentially heal them all. I could end the curse that threatened the pack, but at what cost? My strength was draining rapidly, the edges of my vision darkening. She needs rest, I heard Gabriel say, his voice fading as consciousness slipped away. The power takes a toll, especially the first time. The last thing I felt was Evander lifting me into his arms, his warmth enveloping me as darkness claimed my vision. I dreamed of my grandmother. She stood in a forest clearing, moonlight silvering her hair, making her appear much younger than I'd ever known her. "You found your way," she said, smiling. "I didn't have much choice," I replied. Lily was dying. "There are always choices, Emma. I chose to leave Blackcrest, to return to your grandfather. You chose to bind yourself to Evander for a year. To save my daughter. Yes." Her expression softened, as any mother would, but be careful of the bonds you forge here. "Some are not easily broken. The pendant," I said. "It was never Evander's, was it?" "No. It's been in our family for centuries, a burden and a blessing, passed from mother to daughter. But you gave it to me, not my mother. Your mother didn't inherit the gift." Sadness tinged her smile. "You did. And now Lily will, though her connection to the pack will shape it differently." "What is the gift exactly? What am I?" "A healer of souls," she said simply. "You see the darkness that others hide, the corruption that festers beneath the surface, and you can draw it out, if you're willing to bear the cost." "What cost?" "To heal darkness, you must touch it. Each time you banish corruption, a trace remains within you." Her eyes were serious now. "Be careful who you heal, Emma. Some souls are too far gone, their darkness too entrenched. Try to heal them, and you risk corrupting yourself. How do I know which ones are too far gone? The pendant will guide you if you listen." She began to fade, the dream dissolving around her. "Trust it. Trust yourself. And be wary of—" I awoke with a gasp, the last words lost as the dream slipped away. I was back in my quarters at Blackcrest, tucked into bed. Moonlight streamed through the windows. I'd been unconscious for hours. "Mom?" Lily's voice, clear and strong, came from beside me. I turned to find her sitting in a chair by the bed, her blue eyes bright with concern. The pendant hung around her neck, glinting in the moonlight. "Lily!" I reached for her, pulling her into a tight embrace. She felt solid and healthy in my arms, her skin warm with life. "How are you feeling?" "Good." She nestled against me, better than ever. "Mira says it's because of the Alpha's blood. Mira's been taking care of you?" Lily nodded. "She's nice. She told me stories about werewolves while you were sleeping." She pulled back, studying me with a child's directness. "Is it true we're going to live with them for a whole year?" "Yes," I said, smoothing her fair hair. "I made a promise to help them, because they helped me." Her small face was solemn. "Exactly." She considered this, then nodded acceptance with a child's simple logic. "I like it here. It feels safe." That was the bond speaking, I realized. Evander's blood in her veins, calling her to the pack. A knock at the door interrupted our reunion. Lily slipped from my arms and ran to answer it, displaying none of the caution I would have expected from her normally shy nature. Evander stood in the doorway, his powerful frame filling the space. His eyes found mine over Lily's head, something unreadable in their amber depths. "Alpha!" Lily greeted him with enthusiasm that startled me. "Little one." His voice softened in a way I hadn't heard before. He crouched to her level. "Your mother needs to rest. Mira is waiting to take you for some hot chocolate before bed. Can I come back after?" Lily asked, already moving toward the hallway where Mira waited. "Tomorrow," Evander promised. "You need sleep too." With a quick wave to me, Lily skipped off with Mira, leaving me alone with the Alpha. He entered the room, closing the door behind him. "She's bonded to you already," I observed, unable to keep the wariness from my voice. "It's natural." He moved to stand by the window, moonlight carving his profile in silver. "My blood runs in her veins now. She recognizes me as protector. And what do you recognize her as?" His eyes met mine. "Pack. Under my protection and care, just as you are." There was something possessive in his tone that made me shiver. "What happened in the infirmary?" "You revealed your gift," he said, "more powerful even than your grandmother's. I don't know if I can do it again." "You can. And you will." It wasn't a request, but a statement of fact. "The pack needs you, Emma, more than ever now." The dream conversation with my grandmother echoed in my mind, the warning about corruption, about souls too far gone to save. "And if it's too dangerous?" I asked. "If healing them harms me?" He moved closer, his gaze intense. "I won't let that happen. How can you stop it? By finding the source of the corruption first. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I could feel his heat. You healed the symptom today. Now we need to cut out the root. And you think I can help you do that? I know you can. His certainty was unnerving. The pendant responds to you more strongly than it ever did to Eleanor. You were meant to be here, Emma, meant to save Blackcrest. Was I? Or was I simply a desperate mother who had stumbled into a world I didn't understand, binding myself to forces beyond my control, looking into Evander's amber eyes, feeling the weight of his expectations and the pull of whatever lay between us? History, debt, perhaps something deeper. I wasn't sure anymore. One thing was certain. I had committed myself and my daughter to this pack for a year and a day. Whether I was meant to save them or not, I was bound to try. I'll help you find the source, I said finally, but on one condition. His eyebrow raised slightly. You're not in a position to make conditions, Emma. Aren't I? You need me now. We both know it. A slow smile spread across his face, the first real smile I'd seen from him. Very well. Name your condition. Honesty, I said simply. No more half-truths or omissions. If I'm to risk myself for your pack, I need to know everything. About the corruption, about your past with my grandmother, about why the pendant really brought me here. Evander was silent for a long moment, weighing my words. Then, with a slight inclination of his head that felt like both concession and challenge. Agreed. But be warned, Emma Pierce. Some truths are darker than the corruption we face. Some secrets were buried for good reason. As moonlight spilled across the bed between us, I knew I stood at a crossroads. Behind me lay the simple human life I'd always known. Ahead stretched a year of mysteries, dangers, and powers I was only beginning to understand. And at the center of it all stood Evander Blackcrest, the alpha with the dark past, bound to me through blood and history, and the daughter whose life we now shared. Whatever came next, there would be no turning back.